Hello and welcome to Why Postliberalism Failed. My name is James Patterson. Today is July 18th, 2025. This is the first episode of season two for our podcast. We didn't know we'd be doing it in seasons, but because of some pretty difficult circumstances last year, we had to put a pause on uploads until we were better situated. And of course, when I say we, I'm referring to myself, James Patterson, and also to my co author, Thomas Howes.
Yeah, no, things got pretty intense from a work standpoint, so we had to put an abrupt end to season one. But we're happy to be back.
Yeah, for my end, when I've left Ave Maria University to take a position at the University of Tennessee at the Institute of American Civics. Ave Maria was very good to me, but it was 12 course hours a week, 12 credit hours a week, on top of doing research and other things like this. It's pretty insane load to carry. And coming to IAC has afforded me more time to do stuff like this, even though I will miss the community down there. And I'm about to be in the same boat as Tom, who had a baby in the midst of
Mm.
carrying a pretty significant teaching load at Princeton. How's
Yeah,
your
we have.
baby?
Oh, my baby's great. She's 5 months old. She was actually born on Ronald Reagan's birthday, which is significant to me. And so now I have three I'm blessed with three daughters, so we're very happy.
Yeah, so combined with very significant teaching loads and new family additions, and in my case, a move, as well as trying to finish this still not finished book, we couldn't really excuse ourselves to have a podcast too. Plus, scheduling was insane. So we are back. It's the middle of July. I have a due date for my daughter in 2 weeks. But we'll still be able to record because I'm at home doing this now instead of having to go into my office. There just might be periodic moments when I vanish to go hold a baby, but that's part of the brand. Hopefully, this is we're trad, but we're not trad.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's
so
right.
instead of like talking about a chapter of the book or whatever, we thought we would do a kind of post-liberalism roundup as a starting point. And so we don't really have a very big agenda. We don't have like me talking about the Ustache murdering people. That's a future episode. I've had more than a few people ask me if we were going to do Croatia. Yeah, we're going to do Croatia. The Croatia section of the book was actually the single most miserable thing I've ever written in my life,
Hmm.
because it took honestly at least 20% of the time it took to write that was me just not wanting to go through the task of writing down details about the number of people killed and the degree to which the church was complicit. So that was rough, but again, we'll save that for later. Um, Maybe we'll start with the post liberal in chief, JD Vance.
Yes.
Tom, what's been going on during this Trump term?
Well, I mean, have we had a episode since JD Vance was nominated to be the vice president?
Um, maybe, but
Maybe, but he wasn't
but
elected yet. They
yeah,
weren't
he wasn't
elected.
elected yet.
Yeah, so I mean that's significant. I mean when James and I started doing this research on post-liberalism or this you know polemic with post-liberalism, uh nowhere did we expect that the next vice president of the United States would be post-liberal. So so it's given
I
us a
had a
chance.
hunch. I had a hunch.
So we were the most prepared people in America for this to see what it would be like for the new post-liberal movement when they got one of their guys in power as a vice president. And so that's been an interesting opportunity to compare that. We've had a lot of chance to think about that and compare it with some of the other times that post-liberals came into power in modern history. Um, so that's something we talk about. JD Vance is the favorite, according to betting sites, to be the next nominee to Republican for the Republican nominee for president. that's a long way away, though. A lot can happen between now and then. There have been indications that uh, he's not high on the list of Trump himself.
Yeah.
That Trump seems a little bit closer with Marco Rubio. There've even been hints of possibly him endorsing Marco Rubio for the
Little
nomination.
Marco.
Little Marco, and which
He's all grown
which
up now.
is all grown up. Yeah, that's right. Um, so that's been interesting. I mean, obviously JD Vance, um, it was closely connected with Elon Musk and Peter Thiel that, and I never know how to pronounce his name, if you pronounce it the Germanic pronunciation or not.
You're
Is it Peter?
granted a certain degree of mispronunciations given the number of times I've mispronounced your name when
Oh,
trying to
okay.
start an episode.
Yeah, so Peter Thiel, I think, right? Peter
I
Thiel,
think so,
Thiel.
but
Okay.
I don't know.
Peter Thiel and Elon Musk obviously are old friends for PayPal. Um, they co-produced While You Were Smoking together. And they are closely connected with JD Vance as well. So JD Vance is kind of in a unique position where he is almost the in for the PayPal mafia at the White House because of his work with Peter Thiel, which also connects him with what I don't know his pseudonym, but Curtis Yarvin.
Mm-hmm.
Curtis Yarvin's considered sort of
Mencius
the
Moldbug was his old.
Mencius Moldbug, who's
Yeah.
closely associated with Peter Thiel. Mencius Moldbug, he was sat and watched the elections in 2016 with Peter Thiel, so they're very closely connected. But Trump and Musk had a falling out, which was sort of probably awkward for JD Vance.
Yeah.
Um, and so Musk and then there was this signal chat. There's a lot going on since we've talked last because the news cycle these days is very quick. But there was this signal chat controversy in which the top people in Trump's White House, but not Trump, were having a signal conversation about
Signal's a messaging app on phones for
yeah,
those of you who
it's
are
like
over
WhatsApp.
the age of 50.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a messaging app that's encrypted. And they were talking about war plans for bombing Houthi pirates in the Middle East. And one of the guys accidentally invited the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, not to be confused with Jonah Goldberg or Whoopi Goldberg, or Goldberg, the wrestler. Um,
Good reference.
uh, and um, So, but one of the interesting things about that chat was JD Vance questioning Trump's decision about Houthis. And what bothered him most about it was that it might be some positive externality that benefits Europe. And Vance hates Europe. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the other so Trump being, you have to wonder if Trump appreciated that. That the one time he finds out the secret conversations of JD Vance, he was questioning his decisions. Um, Also, Trump has moved away from, in addition to moving away from Elon Musk, he's moved away from Vance and his more isolationist crowd on some foreign policy matters, and not just bombing the Houthi pirates, but bombing nuclear facilities in Iran, and now apparently being supporting Ukraine more aggressively in their conflict with Russia. Now, JD Vance famously said he doesn't care what happens to Ukraine, like some sort of psychopath or whatever. I'm sorry. But but he's closely more close. And then Trump is also feuded with Tucker Carlson, another guy who's close with JD Vance. So there's some sense that JD Vance is being marginalized within the White House from Trump, and that Trump is actually getting closer more to the traditional Marco Rubio wing of the White House. We'll see what happens, but that's an interesting thing to compare with some of the post-liberals we saw in the past and when they got into these cabinets or were closer to power.
Yeah, the situation with Vance has been really interesting to watch because he had that blow up with Zelensky and the president of Ukraine, and seemed to have really made a kind of example out of Zelensky. Right? It's as a did you say thank you? Zelensky had said thank you a bunch of times, but it wasn't
Yeah.
enough. Right. And it was more just to kind of make him look bad in front of Trump. And there was some staffer who was like, can you wear a suit? And the whole thing just kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the high point of Vance's influence. And
Hmm.
since then, Zelensky's been smarter about how he deals with these sorts of things. And Vance just seems to be unable to contain himself.
Yeah.
And It's kind of a tick of post liberals that they're always the smartest person in the room, and that they're very sensitive to criticism. So
Hmm.
the hostility you get from Vance for Europe from Europe is consistent with a kind of general post-liberal opposition to America as a country. Because if America is a chief vehicle for the projection of liberalism as they understand it, then America must at all times be stopped. And because they view Europe, especially Western Europe, as a
Hmm.
vassal state of America, its success then means that post-liberalism will fail, which of course is the title of our book. So you know,
Hmm.
another major development since we've moved is the decreasing political future fortunes of post-liberal in chief of Hungary, Viktor
Hmm.
Orbán, who does
Yep.
not look like he will win re-election. And what this will mean for post-liberalism is actually kind of important given the material support Orban's given to the organization and the position Orban occupies in this anti-American facet. You know, with Vance, it's often confusing to people why someone who would be part of this national conservative movement would be so down on America, considering we're supposed to be nationalists. But historically, like I said, with America as a vehicle for liberalism, they're actually very isolationist, and this goes back to isolationist connections to fascist parties in the 1930s. We write about a little bit in the book. I don't think we end up talking too much about people like Charles Coughlin. There's only so much we can do. But I wrote for Acton Institute's Religion and Liberty about these connections. And what's funny about Orban is he's occupied this position almost as um, a kind of clearinghouse for connections among European hard right features, as well as a point of connection with China and Russia for these people. And at the center of this has been uh, one of the most sort of important figures in Catholic integralism, as well as post liberalism, a man named Gladden Papin, whose most recent venture as president of the Hungarian uh, Institute for International Affairs has been to reintroduce the Lyndon LaRouche economic plan of a new Bretton Woods. And this is
Hmm.
genuinely shocking that that like and perhaps the final days of the Orban regime were getting stuff that crazy people used to hand out in Lyndon LaRouche newspapers on college campuses.
Hmm.
But I guess maybe David P. Goldman, he's moves around in these circles. Maybe he's got a little bit of cachet over there, but um, the state of play with Orban is something to pay attention to because I forget the name. We actually spoke. We were so Tom and I were at Acton University together, and we spoke with a gentleman from Hungary. He may not want to be named. I have his card, but he was saying that a kind of defector from Fidesz who is not quite as corrupt as Orban, but definitely still um, favorable to the Fidesz voter is sort of the person who's emerging as the alternative. Do you remember?
Yeah, yeah.
You had the conversation with him. I had to go talk to our editor and make apologies.
Oh no, it's all right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think the guy's name is Peter Magyar, which is interesting because that basically in Hungarian he's like Peter Hungry. Um,
It's like John America.
yeah, John America running against yeah. And I was talking to this guy, he said that this Peter Hungry or Peter Magyar guy is, in some ways opportunistic and he's not he, he's very much a politician. At the same time, people are very dissatisfied with Viktor Orban at this point. The Hungarian economy has kind of been tanking recently, last few years, and some of the corruption and foul play has caught up with them. There was quite a bit of controversy as this some sort of cleric who w was caught with abusing with some sort of abuse scandal
Mm-hmm.
where the government was sort of, I don't know, covering it up
The
or I can't,
president uh, gave him clemency, right?
clemency. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that was very unpopular. Um, Now, Viktor Orbán has famously defended what he calls illiberal democracy for the last 15 years. He used to be considered a more liberal candidate, and then he started favoring illiberal democracy. And he seems to be the one behind this effort in their network towards promoting illiberal thinkers of like the 1930s in that era. That there's plenty of money to be made from Hungarian sources producing books on Charles Marat or Benito Mussolini or any of these number of these sort of anti liberal people from this. So there's very much strong connection with post-liberalism then and Viktor Orbán. But it seems like despite what Viktor Orbán did when they came into power in 2010 was they got these super majorities in the parliament is he did everything he could to fix the game in their favor of his party. You sometimes see this with things like gerrymandering and things like that, but he did like a lot more than that. Restructured the whole constitutional order of Hungary so that it could favor his party and give him more power. And he extended that during COVID. But talking to this guy from Hungary who's an intellectual, he's conservative. He used to be a Orban supporter, now he's not. He says that he doesn't think it's so they did it so much that it's going to be like Putin or Maduro or something. Like he probably will lose this next election despite all the things in his favor.
Yeah. So the Fidesz president was Catalin Novak,
Hmm.
and she apparently pardoned Andre Konya, former deputy director of a children's home, and he was engaging in child sex abuse. There goes the algorithm. I shouldn't have said that. The algorithm will now not recommend this, but this was last February or 2 Februarys ago. It was February 2024. This I believe happened like a couple months after Ave Maria had her come speak.
Mm.
And she also had that was part of a um, kind of diplomatic envoy where she came with Gladden to speak at the Heritage Foundation. I remember there was this photograph of her speaking in front of the post liberals, like with Deneen and crowd there, and then she signs this pardon and she resigns and vanishes into thin air. And that ended up not solving the problem. But it has been a weird feature of Orban that he brings in these people who are supposed to be big time conservative types, and then in the background he has all kinds of odd choices that are causing problems. Before this, there was a Hungarian man that was part of his cabinet that fled out of a window at a gay orgy. Yeah, it turns out that it's still Europe. you know uh there's a lot of stuff that has gone on with Orban's government. um you know Not if I hadn't killed the algorithm with the first thing, I definitely with the second one, but we'll see. um Anyway, so yeah, we've had the decline of his fortunes, the kind of up and down of Vance. um but we've also had this article that I had you look at before we got started, that I really liked. It's called Wrong from the Beginning, Leaving the New Right. This came out very recently for our purposes when we're recording, July 11th, 2025. It's at Commonweal, which is not a conservative Catholic magazine. It's probably the most progressive Catholic magazine in America that gets a lot of distribution. So it's not a surprise that they would write this. But Bill Jeffrey um, tells a story about what it was like in the heady days of the first Trump administration and thinking about new possibilities. I mean, if a game show host and real estate magnate can become president despite all the efforts of a political party, what can you not achieve, right? So, what was Philip Jeffries' uh, narrative here? What was his arc? Can you
Me?
not hear me? I'm throwing to you. I already did. Yeah. Uh,
I still don't, I read this, but yeah, Philip Jeffries, he's, he was excited about the ideas of the new right in 2016, and he sort of fed into their slogans. And man, there were so many slogans. You and I were both following very closely at that time. Some of those slogans have kind of like died out. They've been replaced by new ones. Some of the ones he mentions were like, "Oh, liberalism isn't exactly neutral either. It's
one of the
never neutral."
dumbest of the slogans because the people they were targeting, like us, we didn't think it was.
Yeah.
It's like, who are you arguing with here?
Yeah, no, right. It's like, oh, yeah. So, what was the neutral one? There were, let me look at this. It goes through all those slogans that they were whatever. But
America is not an idea.
America's an idea, because that
Yeah,
was like JD Vance during the Republican National Convention pulled that one out,
yeah.
and it kind of. I'm sorry, I don't play the dog whistle game, but when I hear like America is not an idea, it's a place. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, he's like winking and nodding to a few people that,
Chesterton, in his trip on America, was quite fond of the idea of America being more of an idea than a people. When people
yeah.
say it's a place, that's the whistle. It's a people, and who are the American people? Not foreigners, right? So you can't, if it's not an idea, if adopting the idea will make you no longer foreign, then you just remain foreign. So let's say,
Because
for example, you're the daughter of Indian immigrants, and just because you marry an American and then become the second lady, that doesn't mean oh, JD Vance's wife, uh, not a real American.
yeah, well, they certainly, I mean, I don't think JD Vance, of course, we know JD Vance isn't himself, a racist or whatever. He's
No,
has some nativist tendencies.
it's just a
But
weird thing for him to want to say in public,
yeah,
given that what like
yeah, yeah,
what are the conversations with Usha like? For God's
yeah.
sake, the poor woman doesn't deserve to have to, hear you say these things that uh, are at least satisfying the demands of people that would rather see her never come here.
Yeah, no, when he said that, when JD Vance said that thing about Haitian immigrants, there were these sort of legal refugees from Haiti that were in Springfield, Ohio, and he was spreading the jokes and comments about them eating pets. You could tell, like, I mean, this is very primal stuff. I mean, this is
They're
very much.
eating the dogs. They're
They're
eating
eating
the cats.
yeah. At least Trump, I realize Trump is just an old boomer, and he goes along with the Facebook meme kind of thing. But
Yeah,
Vance is smarter than that, and he's somebody who claims that he likes the work of Rene Girard, who writes about the scapegoat mechanism. And it's weird because when I read Rene Girard, what I got out of it was like Christianity, or not Christianity, Jesus saves us by overcomes this sort of nasty primal scapegoat mechanism.
yeah,
And what JD Vance got out of Rene Girard was scapegoating people is very useful.
yeah.
Right?
That's
So he was like
not Gerard's ideas.
yeah, exactly. So he seemed to be scapegoating these, Haitian refugees. And I can't remember what Usha said, but Usha seemed to almost like she kind of was say, "Oh, he didn't mean any harm," but or what I mean. It's like, you could tell that she was not too comfortable with it.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing about this story, and I'm sorry if you weren't ready to be thrown to. I just felt like I've been talking for too long.
Oh yeah.
The feeling about Philip Jeffries' story is I've heard it so many times already
Hmm.
from people that were in elite institutions, Catholic, and sick and tired of the politics of their parents. I mean, we're now old enough that Reagan politics is old, and the people that were going into college in 2015 were 18. That means that they were born the very end of the 90s or the beginning of the 2000s. And so their entire life growing up, Reagan and even George W. Bush had kind of formed a kind of background to them. And so they had seen, if they were conservative, was Obama lose. I mean, win, and Reagan lose. So they were looking for something that moved the ball forward rather than goes back to a losing ideology that doesn't really speak to them or the issues that were important to them, because these guys didn't even know what the Cold War was
Hmm.
until they were much older, and it never seemed that significant to them. And that just makes sense. Politics moves forward. No one today is talking about the square deal or bimetallism, just like issues that have moved to the side.
Hmm.
Um, and so, what he describes here is this excitement and the ideas that are new to them. The idea of liberalism is not neutral, while not exactly new to me. It's new to them. And if you're in your 20s and still in college, this leads, or just out of college, this is exciting. And so he describes this process of writing manifestos and to create an ideological response to the problems of globalization and the dissolution of local communities. And these are all things that sort of, you know, conservatives of the Reagan era also talked about.
Yeah.
There was some concern about globalization not always being in the American interest, and certainly the dislocation of townships and local government by national government. Um, and so he went to the National Conservatism Conference in 2019 and discovered that national conservatism never really cohered. That's certainly true. He talks about like the way that John Bolton, John Yoo, and I no John McCain, Michael Anton. I'm sorry, I got a little confused there. David Brogg, Amy Wax, and Patrick Deneen are all at this event. Um, and the thing about it is that he doesn't really think that it really succeeded, in part because of that incoherence. But the thing that he noticed was that Trump and a lot of the people who had been tied up in this organization became increasingly conventional,
Hmm.
in that they just developed politics as usual. And this, of course, happens. And the United States, as its constitutions develop, created. As the Constitution operates, that's actually it's what it's supposed to do.
Hmm.
The Constitution is supposed to force different organizations and interests into a set of procedures that actually rank down the intensity. You
Yeah.
really want to decrease the intensity because you don't want revolutions, you
Hmm.
don't want barricades. What you want instead is the demand placed on people to negotiate their positions in Congress, which doesn't really do all that great of a job at doing that right now, but in other institutions as well. When it comes to political parties as informal constitutional um, institutions, not to mention the staff under the executive or in justices or judges working together in the federal judiciary. And so by the time that this comes together, he's kind of uh, broke down. He says it's been almost a decade since Trump open all these conversations about the future of conservatism. The people I got to know at house parties, over brunches and coffees, and at self-directed strategy meetings have scattered. Some are still in politics, and a couple are in the administration itself. Others have admitted to me they've lost the enthusiasm for the new right, but are still working in policy trying to make something of the parts they find agreeable. Many have stuck with the new right as it's evolved, though I don't know if many even remember its earliest iteration. And of course, some have left Washington, D.C. and even conservatism entirely. And he includes himself in that category, which doesn't surprise me. Um, if the whole purpose of joining these organizations was to create this new grand political realignment, um, then it never really was in the cards. I actually wrote about this for Law and Liberty about the realignment that wasn't, where what really happened was that an existing faction within the GOP gained control after years of having really very little influence. That's what we would
Hmm.
today call the paleocons.
Yeah.
And the paleocons are the people we were talking about before being those most associated with JD Vance in the White House, right? So
Hmm.
Elbridge Colby is sort of the preeminent international relations guy there. There's Michael Anton, who's kind of a
Hmm.
weird cross between being a Straussian and a paleoconservative. And that's the old Pat Buchanan wing. And what's funny is they got about 100 days in there before Trump threw them out
Hmm.
of the fetid sort of a high position that they were in favor of more interventionism. And this, of course, all starts with Operation, what was it? Nightmare bombing, some
Oh, um, some hammers. It's a
yeah,
what's that
Midnight
called?
Hammer.
Midnight Hammer.
Midnight Hammer.
Yeah.
That's what it is, and
Yeah.
and then when Iran has nothing, right? Iran's response to all of this is memes. He's kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, where's this World War III I was being told about? And he just throws them
Yeah.
all out. So now we have neocon Trump that no one ever expected. Um, so I'm not surprised that he was disappointed, because I've seen this. I've had so many people tell me this story before, and it's the thing that makes me hopeful, is that the problem with post-liberalism is that it actually has no constituency. And
Hmm.
when beyond the elites that imagine themselves affecting these changes, but the thing is that I suspect the rate at which they've been able to gain, like, even the vice presidency, however, on the outs, someone like Vance is more rapid than the people who are disaffected and leaving the movement, at least in the short term. The thing that this also reminded me of, and I was talking a little bit about this. It's in the book, and I was talking about this a little bit with um, some friends, is that even in Kevin's history, Kevin Valier's history, his book, All the Kingdoms of the World. So again, shout out to Kevin. He's been on the podcast. Outstanding book, but his book focuses more on sort of finding your way to Catholic integralism from the starting point in scholarship,
Hmm.
not so much like sort of as like other stuff.
Hmm.
And one of the things that people, if they follow that history, miss is that Catholic integralism and then post liberalism had a very significant presence on the left among populists, stirred up by Bernie Sanders.
Hmm.
And we put this in the book. There's this thing about the Tradinista movement.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, Matthew Schmitz was an early supporter. He sort of, goes the other way. There's,
Liz
the
Brunig,
Liz Brunig. There was interest from Elliot Milko, who founded the Josias,
Kevin
uh,
Gallagher.
and Kevin Gallagher, who is probably the person I would most associate with this, because he had such a strong social media presence.
Hmm.
And he also had a very, I'm not sure if he would like this described, but he has a strong brand. He doesn't really do it anymore, but the thing about Kevin Gallagher is that he's built like a truck. If you ever, like,
Hmm.
there used to be, I'm not sure if he still updates it, but for a long time you could just see how much weight this guy was lifting in the gym, and it was terrifying. So this idea of a mustachioed Catholic socialist who would aggressively, prosecute his case on social media made him a famous, if not infamous, figure on areas of Twitter and um, and the like. So really, like it's kind of interesting that he didn't end up with them. Instead, he was on the right, and then he moves to the left, but not an integralist version. And the phrase that I always liked about this, Matt Cairns, people may know him more as woke space Jesuit because he was one of the funniest people in Catholic Twitter. There will never be another who will master that level of posting. Um, and he still has his
Was he a
moments.
Jesuit for real?
No, no,
Oh,
no. He's
okay.
just but like he's older now, but like some of the things he would post are immensely funny. One of my favorites, and I think most people's favorites, was one about um being a person toasting the king during the religious strife in England. And I'm not even going to try to reproduce it here, but if you know, you know. So anyway, the thing about left integralism was that there, instead of the Vermeulian idea of integration from within, which is an elitist approach, it was integration from below. And
Hmm.
so the idea would be that integralism would be a kind of workers' revolution or working class
Mm.
revolution.
Hmm.
And they broke with the what we considered the clerical fascist wing uh, over the problems of defending reactionary or clerical fascist ideas. And I think I played a role in it when I published an article called After Republican Virtue, in which
Hmm.
I pointed out this is like the earliest example that I remember of what this book has become in some ways, which is illustrating the degree to which Catholic integralism and post-liberalism are tied up in these really unsavory activities. Even then, I wasn't aware of it. I had just done like a couple days research on JSTOR, uh, looking this stuff up and a few other books, and there was I think it wasn't like the event that did it, but it was sort of one of the many things that sort of led to this inevitable split was that people like Kevin Gallagher would not countenance Marat. They wouldn't countenance Franco. They wouldn't
Hmm.
countenance Salazar. And
Hmm.
it makes sense because all three of those figures were profoundly anti-left.
Yeah.
So, it was weird that they were together in the first
Hmm.
place. But what this meant was that the people who held on to the integralist and post liberal labels were the ones on the right, and
Hmm.
the ones who had to go find other avenues for success uh, were on the left. And what this is weird in a personal way is that in many cases I'm actually like friends with them now. Like they used to be like
Hmm.
people that I fought with, and now like I'm on at least friendly terms with these people. One of them I tried to help get into graduate school. Like it's a weird world, but I just so many of those people were clearly smart, and this guy Philip Jeffrey is clearly doing very well now.
Hmm.
Obviously, very smart, very good writer, um, and it just goes to show that this movement has had much more of an impact on the lives of young Catholic potential leaders than I think some people take or some people believe.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the sort of left wing post liberalism. Another one of these was Alistair McIntyre.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's his name? Nathan Pinkowski is a post liberal, and he wrote an article about McIntyre as sort of the reluctant godfather of post liberalism. And one of the things he says in there, and I responded to it, but one of the things he said in there that was accurate was, yeah, that McIntyre was reluctant. I mean, he didn't really want any part of that. He didn't have any interest in Rod Dreher's book, The Benedict Option, which was clearly playing off themes and after virtue. And that shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, McIntyre had been a Marxist. He still had Marxist elements of his thought. He defended the French Revolution. He had a sort of left wing sort of whatever. Those guys are absolutely allergic to anything that looks like a right wing movement, like Franco or any of those guys. So yeah, wasn't surprising that both McIntyre could have influenced post liberals and he had wanted nothing to do with them at the same time.
Well, that was something else I was considering bringing up in the review, which is the passage of Alistair McIntyre,
Hmm.
the grand philosopher of of Catholic politics at the University of Notre Dame. He wrote for a very long time. He was very advanced in age. I forget how old he was.
Gosh, like 94, I think.
Yeah, and in some cases was directly responsible for a lot of the people who are doing a lot of reconsideration of American ideas. And he's not just Godfather in the sense that he wrote books, but he was actually a teacher to a lot of people that are in this milieu. Like a lot of the people that are involved in this sort of thing took courses from Patrick Deneen or Alistair McIntyre, Chad Pecknold. Like they're actually um, direct sort of intellectual influences.
Mhm.
So it's weird that McIntyre was one of those people when he did not wish to be one of those people.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
how? Tell me more about this response to Nathan Pekoski's article, because in a way, from what I remember about your response, is that you actually think After Virtue was not his best book, although it's his most read.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was very influenced by McIntyre. I when I came of age and started reading philosophy in my early 20s, so that was, I don't know, 17 years ago or something like that. 17 doesn't seem like somebody who's older, doesn't seem like a long time, but that's like almost half my life. I'm 40 now. Um, and the first thing I read was After Virtue, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was great. And it changed the way I thought about a lot of things. I continued to read McIntyre. I think the next thing I read about from McIntyre was his essay on it's gosh, what's the name of it? It's it's like epistemological crises and narrative philosophy of science or something like that. Uh, I dug through that thing. I read it multiple times. Followed some of the people he referenced in there, and that got,
Epistemological crises, dramatic narrative,
yeah, that's right. Great essay.
and the philosophy of science. Yeah.
Just a fantastic essay. He gets into debates between people like Michael Polanyi and Thomas Kuhn and Lakatos about philosophy of science, and he introduces the idea how narrative has a place to play in these epistemological debates. And it was really good. And it got me to read Michael Polanyi. I read Personal Knowledge. I found out I had already read John Henry Newman. I kind of went down that path. Learned a little bit from Gadamer and Heidegger as well. So it's very much, and McIntyre was a big part of that. And I read McIntyre's book on the third part of that trilogy, which three rival versions of moral inquiry. Very good book. But then, later going back to it, the thing that I noticed though in Catholic grad school was like a lot of people read McIntyre and were sort of become political radicals because of it. And that it's there. I mean, he's very critical of modernity, capitalism, and liberal democracy. It's there. The critiques are there. So in my response to Pinkowski, I basically say, "Hey, Pinkowski, he's half right." Um, but there's so much good in McIntyre that somebody can reject sort of his political radicalism and take a different, route. The McIntyre's emphasis goes from politics to education, to inquiry, and three rival versions of moral inquiry. And a lot of his insights, I think, apply better at the level of education and universities than they do at the level of politics. Because that's where first of all, if you actually find the community, the integrated community out of which the ideas of like Aristotle come, it was not Athens. Athens was not an integrated polis. It was a very cosmopolitan polis by ancient standards, although with a lot of slavery. Everyone
Yeah.
had slavery back then, but they had a lot of. But it was very cosmopolitan. In fact, Plato complained about that implicitly. If you read Plato's dialogue, The Laws, the Athenians talking about Athens as being this place where the laws are basically just about peaceful coexistence. They compare that to Crete and Sparta, which have more integrated polities. But the complaint in the laws about the Crete and Sparta was that they emphasized too much war, military. They're like Klingons. Like Sparta were like the Klingons of the ancient world. everything was integrated towards creating soldiers so that they could defend themselves. So they said, the implied philosophy in Plato's laws is that we need a police or polity that isn't so one-sided, that is integrated like Sparta, but not just for fortitude, but all the virtues. And that sort of became sort of the model of the Athenian Academy, was a sort of integrated police like that. You see it in Aristotle's Politics. You see it in Book 10 of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. You also see it, it's implied in Xenophon's The Education of Cyrus. There's a part at the beginning of The Education of Cyrus where he says that, his fictional Persia is a sort of integrated polity like this. But everyone knows it's not the historical Persia, but it's his Xenophon's Persia. And he compares it to not like most cities, which have laws that are only, general laws against like that hurt other people, theft and things like that or whatever, that are more about those laws for peaceful coexistence. No, Persia was different. They educated you from as a small child to be, virtuous for the common good. So all that stuff is not ancient Athens. Ancient Athens had laws like we think of normal cities have laws, not integrated towards forming virtuous citizens, except insofar as, banning murder and theft makes you a little slight, makes you more virtuous in the sense that it makes you less vicious in those one cent, those limited ways. Um, but what was integrated was the educational communities of ancient Athens, which was the Athenian Academy. And that's where so McIntyre kind of pulls the Deneen a little bit and misreads it. He's got a point, but it's not about the politics. This integrated polity that of the past never really existed. Um, uh, but there is an element of truth, though, in the university. The universities nowadays, we have the sort of model of a hegemony of non-sectarian universities. These places where you go and they're completely neutral towards these things. They say they're just creating a platform. But what ends up happening, and I think this is where the post-liberals should turn their attention to the university, is they don't really become neutral, and just sort of a sort of thick moral liberalism becomes the de facto, you know, sect of the university, right?
And
So
that's
we've allowed this moral liberalism to be a sect for the non-sectarian universities. I don't think that applies to the laws, like in the politics or whatever. In
that's
fact,
that's the point Philip Jeffrey was thinking of, I think, when he was talking about
mhm,
liberalism isn't neutral.
mhm,
And as a conservative graduate student who had made his way through a PhD program and then watched these people all discover something that for me was so obvious from the way that I was
mhm.
treated in graduate school, I couldn't believe that it was a revelation to anyone.
Yeah,
It's like, of course it's not. What is wrong with you? Why
yeah,
would you
yeah,
ever think that? Why is this news?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, so really I think McIntyre's best applications of his ideas were in the universities. He defended like John Henry Newman's idea of a university and expanded on it or whatever. And I think we should get comfortable with our sectarian universities. Take more pride in them.
Hmm.
But, we have a Catholic university that's really Catholic, and the moral teaching of the church should be sort of normative for the normative disciplines there. And you know what? They have to engage with the other sectarian universities, engage with them, engage with their ideas, compete with them or whatever. So it's more of a pluralist, I think a more pluralist model of education with sectarian education is more what McIntyre would support. But guess what? That works best in a polity that is non-sectarian,
Hmm.
where it doesn't take sides in this. It allows for the sort of competition of these different sects. So I think that's how I think how you correct McIntyre and take his best ideas is move away from the politics to the education. And that's why the title of my piece for Civitas Outlook, is it called Civitas, right?
Hmm.
Civitas Outlook is McIntyre's post liberal godchildren. So sort of responding to Pinkowski's piece.
Want to shout out to Richard Wright, who's running that show. He used to be the editor. He was the founder of Law and Liberty. So he's out there just doing incredible work, and actually doing work, right? Rather than just complaining online. He's like, building institutions, really just an incredible guy.
Yeah, I was really
Um,
impressed by him. He reached out to me to write that piece, and I was really very impressed by what they're doing.
oh yeah. So Civitas is part of a, big program at the University of Texas, and just incredible stuff going on there. That's an hour right there, man. We got through four big topics. We should really close out here. Is there anything that we should mention before we go?
Oh, I can see. I mean, we missed a couple things about JD Vance that were significant since last episode. Like one, he tries to use he and his I'm sure his post-liberal buddies were helping him with this, but he tries to legitimate America First of the Trump administration, which at the time was emphasizing things like isolationism
Is this
and
did we miss Ordo Amoris?
yeah, that's the Order of Morris thing, right?
Oh,
So like isolationism and nativism and what's the other protectionism and all the stuff that are kind of implied and this idea of America First. And remember, this was like in the thick of like the high point of like the JD Vance, Peter Thiel hegemony of the early Trump administration term. It
oh
was in
yeah,
the
I
peak of
forgot
it,
all
right?
about that. But
And
we were memeing on that for days.
and Trump's getting interviewed, and he says, what was it by Jack Posobiec or something? I can't remember who he's interviewed by,
Hmm.
but and he pulls out Augustine's idea of an order of love, an ordo amoris, and to defend this, that we first got to. The idea is, guys, before we get to the love of strangers out there, we need to love ourselves first. We got to love ourselves, our family, our communities, whatever. And in the context of like the Trump administration just having like cut PEPFAR funding to Africa
Yeah.
because of this, whatever. The connotations of his applications really set people off, and I was set off by it too because I thought it was,
It set off the Pope. I believe the late
yes,
Pope Francis's final act as Pope was to condemn JD Vance,
yeah. He
which
he
then
didn't
the
mention.
next Pope actually shared.
Yes, yeah. So Pope Francis explicitly, without mentioning JD Vance's name, responded to his application of the Ordo Amoris, that his application runs counter to the Good Samaritan. Who is my neighbor? Well, probably that person you're trying to avoid helping, right? Um, so JD, and then we find out after Pope Francis dies, the night that he met JD Vance.
Yeah, just saying.
No, just kidding.
These are
I
these
actually
are
don't want to take
we're
part
making
in that.
observations. It's up to you to
Yeah,
connect the dots.
yeah, no, no. But it was I JD Vance is not responsible for Pope Francis's death, right?
That we
That's
know of.
just Pope Francis was
With
probably
with
like
the
a lot
available
of
evidence, it is unlikely.
yeah. So Pope Francis, like many old people, was holding out for a big date. Thomas Jefferson held out for the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, along with John Adams. A lot of people hold out for Christmas. Pope Francis held out for Easter, and he got to Easter, and then that was it, right?
Yeah.
Just so happened that that was when JD Vance came to town. So it wasn't, I don't think, a case of JD Vance removing Vance's will or Pope Francis's will to live. That's
It's
not.
just that he has that effect on some
He
people.
has that effect on some people, but I don't think that was what was going on. But some people interpreted it that way. Anyways, as soon as we find out Pope Leo's the Pope, which was
Something else we forgot to talk about,
Pope
that we're gonna have
Leo,
to throw in
holy
here at the
cow.
end. First
Yeah,
American Pope.
first American Pope, right? Incredible, right? Um, I'm still getting over it. Not get I'm still it's just amazing to me. Pope Leo. Um, we find out in his old Twitter account, the last thing he retweeted was Pope Francis's critique of JD Vance.
Yeah.
So the integralist order is not, it's not going so well. Kind of like with Action Francais,
Yeah.
not going so well when the
Not a lot of
actual
papal support.
they get not getting a lot of people support, right?
Just you
So
wait. Integration from within is going to take some time, but You know,
Yeah.
we'll all be in the bishop's prison soon enough.
Yeah. But this is probably good that we have a American Pope, though. It might hold JD Vance in check a little bit. Maybe that indirect power might be useful. Um,
That's right. Now we'll be
um,
quoting Unum Sanctum.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's it's kind of funny because that's Maritain used the indirect power to defend Pope Pius XI's condemnation of Action Française. So it was like, it can be right. It doesn't always look bad. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think having Pope Leo very attentive to what JD Vance is doing might be a good little check on JD Vance, right? I mean, he had a
Mhm.
nice meeting with Pope Leo, and maybe his behavior, public behavior, will get better now. We'll see.
I am all for JD Vance becoming a better Catholic and statesman.
Oh yeah,
I write off nobody. I do like to talk a little bit of, you know, I'm not allowed to say that word, but because I'm from Texas, is just what we do. But so hopefully, if Pope Leo the XIV can serve as a pastor to a potentially great statesman, then I'm all for it. In the meantime, keep that man away from the reins of power because I actually care about dead Ukrainians. But
yeah, yeah,
I,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
that's you take the same position that I do. And now, I guess the other thing that we didn't mention, real quick, JD Vance had an interview with uh do that. How do you say that guy's name? Douthit?
Ross Douthat.
Route to us Douthit.
Was
And
it
that
Van?
has
Are you talking
some
about Vance or Teal?
Vance. He interviewed
Okay,
Vance. And Vance got a little bit defensive, I think, with didn't he? About
I did not watch it. I
oh,
would
okay.
rather pull my eyes out with forks
Yeah,
than
yeah.
watch JD Vance talk to anyone. So I have to admit that I spared myself the suffering. Uh,
Yeah.
what
Yeah, well, if you're
did he get defensive? Or did you
I
watch
think
it?
so about some of the about some of the concessions he's had to make within the administration.
IVF stuff like
Yeah,
that.
things like that. Yeah, yeah. But you know what? If JD Vance, if you're listening, you're our Catholic brother now. Just we understand you're a recent convert. We're rooting for you. We're rooting for you. But we're not
Yeah.
going to support your politics until they change.
My gosh, if you know, to compromise on IVF is like that's like a classic like machine politics democratic Irish Catholic or Italian
Yeah.
Catholic move.
Hmm.
It's like the Cuomo pivot. It was so weird.
Hmm.
Um and
I'm
I was not surprised, but I was disappointed. Not
Well, I
that he
mean,
cares what I think.
I think there's a way to handle it within sort of sound incrementalist prudence, right?
Hmm.
Without positively affirming it. There's say like you just have to say, listen, the media we're far from the median voter on this. We're not going to get anywhere with this right now. We should focus on other issues. That I think is a fair thing to say. But I think there were some things he said about like that went a little bit further than that. You can just be quiet. You don't have to talk about everything either. So I think there are ways of handling it. I mean, we do have to accept that Catholic politicians um, can have to work with the polity what that they're working with and try to push, what did he say? Move the arrow. Is that the expression? Move the what do you call it?
Overton window? What's
No,
that
you
called?
you you put you kind of you move in the you try to put improve things, but you're not going to get everything, right? You have
Okay.
to pick your battles. But certainly don't want to affirm things that were,
Well,
that
thank
were
you, everybody. I promise we won't always talk about JD Vance. It's
yeah,
just
no.
a big part of our project was talking about the rate at which this stuff was gaining influence. And then next thing you know, the vice president of the United States is a self-declared supporter of Patrick Deneen's ideas. And it's just
Yeah.
sort of like, we were right. We were right. We'll get back to talking more about what's in the book. We have a lot of historical cases to make. We have uh, a lot to talk about. So I'm not sure what we're going to do next. I won't make any promises now. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
we'll just leave it here.
yeah, I mean, right now it's wait and see. I mean, every one of these cases studies we have with post-liberalism is a little bit different. Um, it's possible that post-liberalism suffers the fate of the clerical fascists in Argentina. It's
Mhm.
possible that we have a Vichy France, though very unlikely. I don't see Congress dissolving itself and handing dictatorial powers to anybody like JD Vance.
Yeah. Or
Um,
somebody saying that they did, as in the case of Austria. You
yeah, somebody to say they did. Yeah, yeah,
know?
exactly.
Oh my
Or
gosh,
if,
we're not doing this now at the end when no one's watching. All right.
sorry. Yes, yes.
All
So,
right, Tom. Until next time.
thanks, James.
See you guys.